Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In a quaint town nestled between rolling hills, silence often resonated louder than the cacophony of urban life. Maplewood was a place where neighbors shared afternoon coffee and children played freely in sun-dappled yards. But one brisk autumn morning, that serenity shattered like glass. A harrowing discovery would plunge Maplewood into a nightmare no one saw coming. The sun had barely risen when Clara Jennings, a meticulous schoolteacher known for her punctuality, didn't arrive at the elementary school where she had taught for over a decade. It wasn't like her to miss work without notifying anyone. Concern filled the air as fellow teachers began to whisper. Glancing at the empty parking spot where Clara's red sedan should have been. Hours passed, and still no sign of Clara. The school's principal, anxious and unsettled, decided to alert Clara's husband, Dan. Together, they drove to her home, their hearts echoing with a sense of foreboding. As they approached the charming brick cottage that Clara and Dan had called home for the last 15 years, a knot of worry tightened in the pit of their stomachs. The door was slightly ajar, swinging open with a gentle creak as they entered. The house was unnervingly quiet, save for the ticking of a clock that seemed to count down the seconds in ominous beats. Dan called Clara's name, his voice tinged with desperation. Unanswered. Little did they know, the story of Clara Jennings was about to unravel in ways that none could have anticipated. A case that would grip the community, shaking the very foundations of Maplewood, was just beginning. And as the clock ticked on, time became a cruel adversary, leaving secrets waiting to be unearthed. The victim, Clara Jennings, was more than just a school teacher. She was a pillar of the Maplewood community, known for her warm smile and boundless patience. She had turned many reluctant readers into passionate learners. Those who passed through her classroom carried with them lessons of resilience and the importance of kindness. Yet behind her gentle demeanor lay the complexities of a life that was anything but simple. Born into a family of modest means, Clara had worked tirelessly to build a life full of purpose. Raised by a single mother who labored day and night to provide for her children, Clara learned early on the value of determination. Her mother's unwavering love fueled Clara's educational aspirations, leading her to earn a scholarship to a reputable university. After graduation, she returned to Maplewood, where she envisioned making a difference in the lives of young minds. But as Clara built her career, shadows began to emerge in her personal life. Though she and Dan shared a love story that blossomed in college, their journey was not without turmoil. Friends often noted the couple's arguments during gatherings, a stark contrast to their otherwise idyllic facade. Yet, even in their disagreements, Clara exuded a quiet strength, as if she were resolute in finding harmony amidst the chaos of life. In the days following her mysterious disappearance, those who knew Clara were left grappling with disbelief. Her close friends recalled late-night study sessions, shared dreams of adventures, and heartfelt conversations that revealed her vulnerability. Each memory tugged at the threads of a story that was rapidly becoming a riddle, one that disassembled the image of the perfect life everyone believed Clara had created. As the community began to rally around Anne, offering comfort and support, the police initiated an investigation that would shine a light on the hidden struggles of their beloved teacher. With every hour that passed, the search for the truth became a mission not just to find Clara, but to unravel the complexities of the life she led. The crime scene. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the neatly manicured lawns of Maplewood as the police arrived at the Jennings home. In stark contrast to the peaceful exterior, the atmosphere within the cozy brick walls felt heavy with uncertainty. Clara Jennings was missing, and the question on everyone's lips was one of desperation. Where had she gone? Detective Sarah Mitchell stepped through the threshold, immediately struck by the juxtaposition of warmth and disarray. The living room, usually filled with the fragrant scent of freshly brewed coffee and the laughter of baking cookies, now held an eerie stillness. Vacuum lines marked the carpet, and a couple of mismatched shoes lay haphazardly by the door, a sign of an ordinary morning interrupted. As she entered the kitchen, Sarah noticed the dishes sat undisturbed in the sink, a half-made lunch still spread across the counter. Clara's favorite mug, a bright blue adorned with stars, was tipped over, its contents spilled across the table. The scene pulsed with unsettling implications. Someone had fled in a hurry, or perhaps had been taken by force. In the hallway, a framed photo of Clara, grinning broadly alongside Dan, caught Sarah's eye. The image exuded joy, a snapshot of love that belied the strife beneath the surface. The detective began to wonder what hidden truths lay behind this cheerful exterior. A nagging sense whispered at her that the life Clara led was not as perfect as it appeared. A thorough search commenced, each officer meticulously combing through the house, yet the only sign of struggle was an errantly tossed throat pillow. As the afternoon wore on, flashes from the officers' cameras illuminated corners of the house, capturing evidence of a life interrupted. Still, no sign of Clara remained. Outside, anxious neighbors gathered, whispers of their beloved teacher swirling in the crisp autumn air, growing thick with intrigue and concern. As unanswered questions loomed large, Detective Mitchell felt a weight settle on her chest. The deeper she delved into the secrets of this case, the more she sensed that the heart of the matter lay not just in finding Clara, but unraveling the truth behind her disappearance. The early investigation. The days that followed Clara's disappearance descended upon Maplewood like a shroud of fog, obscuring clarity and amplifying worry. The community, once vibrant and welcoming, became a tight-knit group bound by fear and speculation. News anchors transformed local stories into urgent narratives, their voices painting a picture of a beloved teacher lost amidst a backdrop of uncertainty. For Detective Sarah Mitchell, the case began in earnest, her focus sharpening with every passing moment. Her first course of action was to interview family and friends, a process that would reveal entangled layers of Clara's life. Dan, her husband, sat in the small interrogation room, his demeanor a mixture of disbelief and despair. His eyes, red-rimmed and glassy, told a story of sleepless nights spent in anxious anticipation of news that failed to materialize. He insisted that Clara had no known enemies, emphasizing her gentle spirit. She loved her students, he said, his voice cracking. She would never hurt anyone. Yet, as Sarah probed deeper, questions began to emerge. She learned that Clara had recently confided in a close friend about feeling overwhelmed, grappling with the demands of work and the strain on her marriage. The friend recounted a late-night conversation that hinted at deeper issues. Clara said she felt trapped, like she couldn't breathe. It scared me. Armed with this newfound perspective, Sarah expanded her investigation outward. The school's administration provided her with a list of Clara's students and colleagues, prompting a series of interviews that peeled back the facade of a diligent teacher. A disgruntled parent had raised eyebrows recently, upset over his child's grade-skulled anger, have transformed into something more sinister. Amidst the growing web of potential suspects, one interview stood out. A fellow teacher, Jenna, revealed that she and Clara had been planning a surprise vacation. Clara had seemed excited yet nervous, oscillating between wanting to escape and feeling trapped by her responsibility. This contradiction pointed toward a woman who had become a prisoner of her own life, desperate for freedom, yet unmoored by her commitments. As Detective Mitchell reflected on these connections, an uneasy feeling coiled in her gut. The investigation was not just a quest for Clara. It was also a search through the shadows where secrets and pain lingered, waiting to be unearthed. The dead ends. As the investigation unfolded, the initial flurry of activity soon settled into a disheartening rhythm of uncertainty. Each lead that Detective Sarah Mitchell pursued felt more like a mirage than a beacon of hope, slipping through her fingers just as she thought she could grasp it. Days turned into weeks, and each passing hour seemed to deepen the mystery surrounding Clara's disappearance, wrapping the town of Maplewood tighter in a shroud of anxiety. Detective Mitchell found herself sitting in the small, cluttered office of the station, surrounded by a jumble of notes and photographs. Among them were the faces of Clara's students, some with innocent smiles, and others with pensive expressions, hinting at the pressures of childhood that could spill into darkness. She studied the reports, interviews conducted with parents, colleagues, and community members, but every path seemed to lead to a dead end. Investigating the disgruntled parent led to nothing substantial. He had an alibi the night Clara vanished, backed by several neighbors. Then there was the fellow teacher, Jenna, whose excited plans for a getaway only underscored Clara's evident distress. Although they had shared intimate confidences, Sarah found nothing to indicate foul play between the two women. In fact, Jenna was now embroiled in her own grief, having been left feeling guilty for not recognizing Clara's turmoil sooner. Attempts to trace Clara's last known movements yielded sparse results. Security footage from the local grocery store did not show any sign of her. Friends reported mixed accounts of her demeanor leading up to her disappearance, adding uncertainty rather than clarity. Sarah felt herself wrestling with a growing frustration. Each day brought fresh hope, and each night erased it. Even the canvassing of the neighborhood turned stale. While an elderly neighbor claimed to have heard an argument the night Clara went missing, the details of what transpired were too vague to hold up under scrutiny. Nothing concrete came together. Instead, time was devouring the lead, slowly transforming the once vibrant tapestry of Clara's life into an indistinct blur. As twilight fell over Maplewood, Detective Mitchell stood at the edge of the darkness, grappling with the realization that this case was not simply about finding a victim. It was about understanding the complex patterns of human emotion that threaded through every individual involved. Yet as she stared down the labyrinthine path ahead, a thought lingered. What if the truth lay hidden in an unexpected corner, waiting to be discovered? A break in the case, just as the shadows of doubt began to close in. A phone call shattered the somber atmosphere surrounding the Maplewood Police Department. Detective Sarah Mitchell leaned over her desk, her heart thrumming with anticipation as she answered. It was an officer from the State Crime Lab, calling with news that could either brighten their investigation or plunge it back into darkness. Detective Mitchell, we've received the results from the analysis of a potential piece of evidence from the Jennings home. The voice crackled through the receiver, It's not conclusive, but it could be significant. The officer detailed the discovery of a small blood-stained scrap of fabric found stuck on the corner of the doorframe leading to the backyard. At first, Sarah held her breath, mentally sifting through a multitude of scenarios. Had there been a struggle? Was this Clara's? The next hour stretched infinitely as she waited for the lab to confirm whether the blood belonged to Clara or someone else. As she paced her office, she mentally clutched at the potential implications: a lead, a direction, perhaps even a breakthrough that offered the tiniest glimmer of hope. When the call came in, it carried the weight of 1,000 realities. The blood was confirmed as Clara's. The lab had also found traces of an unidentified male DNA. Sarah's pulse quickened. A possible breakthrough glimmered before her. She had something tangible to work with, something that could lead her finally to Clara's location, to those responsible for the event that turned the town upside down. Team meetings turned frenetic. They meticulously combed through the months of interviews once more, this time through a sharper lens. With the new evidence, Sarah could regroup her investigation, focusing not only on Clara's acquaintances, but also on known offenders in the area. They initiated a search for men who might match the unidentified DNA profile, hoping to uncover something in the town's police records. But with this new focus came urgency. The 48-hour window for leveraging that evidence grew ever smaller. Pressure mounted on Sarah and her team, who were now committed to tracking down this new lead that could either pave the way forward or bring them crashing back to square one. As they pulled late shifts, fueled by determination and coffee, Sarah found herself wrestling with mixed emotions, hopeful yet haunted, knowing all too well that the truth often lingered on the precipice of impossibility. But she also understood that unearthing it was not just about Clara anymore. It was about reclaiming the sense of safety and community that had once defined Maplewood, now tainted by uncertainty. The suspect. The investigation began to take shape as Detective Sarah Mitchell delved into the history of known offenders in the Maplewood area. She combed through records and meticulously logged details before a familiar name landed on her desk, one that echoed like a dark whisper. Jake Harrington had a reputation that preceded him, a convoluted tapestry of petty crimes that ascended to more serious offenses over the years. His last known charge involved charges of domestic violence against an ex-girlfriend, but the past few years had seen him flit in and out of the local justice system without significant consequence. Jake didn't fit the mold of a murderer, at least, not outwardly. He had once attended school with Clara and Dan, an unremarkable figure in their world. Someone whose darkening past was only known in hushed conversations. But with the newfound DNA evidence, Sarah knew she had to track him down. Within hours, her team had located him in a rundown apartment not far from the town's outskirts. As they approached, Sarah felt a flicker of apprehension. The air around the dingy building buzzed with a nervous energy, as if the very structure recognized the stories that clung to it. She took a moment, pressing her palms together, focusing on the purpose of what lay ahead. Knocking on the door, she could feel the weight of the moment pressing down upon her. When it cracked open, she was greeted by a figure whose scruffy appearance and weary eyes betrayed shadows of regret. Jake seemed surprised, bordering on shaken, as Sarah introduced herself and explained the nature of her visit. As he stepped further into the dimly lit room, Sarah took note of the peeling walls and the mess that surrounded. The scent of cigarettes mingled with something sweet and stale, a stark contrast to the crisp autumn air outside. But other than the unsettling environment, Jake appeared passive, disillusioned even. "I haven't seen Clara in years," he grumbled, rubbing the back of his neck as he leaned against the doorframe. "Why would I have anything to do with her?" Sarah probed, pressing him about his whereabouts on the day Clara went missing and his past encounters with her. With every question, tension hung thick in the air. Jake's responses were evasive, a web of half-truths and contradictions spinning outwards. He pointed fingers at the wrong crowd, claimed to be a victim of circumstance. But beneath those claims, when she mentioned the DNA found at the Jennings home, Jake balked, his body language shifting to reveal a man caught between guilt and denial. The detective observed the flicker of emotion, one that suggested his life had intersected with Clara's in ways that neither she nor Dan could have ever imagined. As Sarah left, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of Jake Harrington's connection to Clara. With the clock ticking, the pieces of the puzzle were starting to take shape, but dark truths still lay buried in a landscape riddled with secrets, and Jake might just be the key to unveiling them. The trial. Months passed, transforming the vibrant colors of autumn into the bare, stark branches of winter. Yet as the seasons changed, the interest in Clara Jennings' case did not wane. The small town of Maplewood buzzed with the impending trial of Jake Harrington, the man whom the investigators had linked to the blood found at Clara's home. Detective Sarah Mitchell had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, anticipation and trepidation swirling within her as the court date approached. On the morning of the trial, a chill clung to the air, reflective of the tension that hung in the courtroom. The seats were filled with townspeople who had watched the tragedy unfold through headlines and broadcasts. They came expecting answers, longing for closure, demonstrating the palpable sense of community that still clung to hope. As the gavel resonated through the solemn chamber, Sarah took her place, absentee emotions fueling her focus. The prosecution, led by a determined state attorney, laid out their case with methodical precision. They presented the evidence while dissecting Jake's tumultuous past, focusing on his history of violence and his connection to Clara. The DNA evidence spoke audibly, presenting a narrative that linked him to the scene. But the defense was not only prepared, but eager to unravel the threads that bound Jake to Clara's fate. The defense attorney launched into an aggressive cross-examination strategy, trying to dismantle the prosecution's presentation. He painted Jake as a victim not of Clara, but of circumstance, a man trying to escape a past haunted by mistake. With each attempt to dismantle the narrative, Sarah felt her resolve waver slightly. Could Jake's past be so distorted that he would remain innocent? Witnesses were called, including Clara's friends and family, each sharing their memories wrapped in mourning and disbelief. They spoke of her kindness and strength, her dreams and plans. Their stories painted a picture of a woman cherished by those around her and seemed to seep into the walls of the courtroom, stirring something heavy in the hearts of the spectators. As the trial went on, snippets of Clara's life were revealed, each more heartbreaking than the last. The community's pain echoed loudly against the trial's proceedings: the loss of a dear teacher, the disenchantment of a town that felt violated. For Sarah, this was not only a quest for justice, it was a catharsis, an opportunity to honor Clara's memory and remind everyone of the life that had been snuffed out too soon. Finally, it was time for the jury to deliberate. Each minute stretched into a small eternity as hearts raced and voices faded into uneasy silence. When the jury returned, the courtroom held its breath. The foreman stood, voice steady, but tinged with gravity. We find the defendant, Jake Harrington, guilty of the charge of second-degree murder. An audible gasp rippled through the courtroom. While some mourned for the life lost, others began to breathe easier, feeling the weight of unease lift just slightly as the gavel banged down, signaling the closing of the trial. Sarah felt an odd mix of relief and sorrow. Justice had been served. Yet it could never replace the loss that lingered in the hearts of those who missed Clara Jennings. The path to healing would be long and uncertain. But with the truth acknowledged, the community of Maplewood could begin to reclaim its sense of safety amid the echoes of grief that marked their lives forevermore. The aftermath. In the wake of the trial, the small town of Maplewood grappled with a heavy silence that seemed to envelop every street corner and park. The verdict delivered relief, yet the specter of loss lingered like ghostly echoes in each familiar space. Saturdays, once filled with laughter, now carried a somber weight, as if the very fabric of the community had twisted under the strain of grief and uncertainty. Sarah Mitchell found herself reflecting back on the case while strolling through the local park. The autumn leaves crunched beneath her feet, their vibrant colors dulled by the memories of tragedy that tainted the air. Clara's absence was palpable, and the remnants of her laughter could still be felt alongside the footsteps of children playing at the nearby playground where she had once taken her student. In the days that followed the trial, Sarah attended a vigil held in Clara's honor, lit by hundreds of flickering candles that illuminated the flickering faces of those gathered. Friends, students, and parents shared stories of Clara's unyielding spirit and dedication. Each anecdote served as a bittersweet reminder of the woman whose life had intersected theirs, igniting warmth and hope amidst her untimely departure. Yet, as tears fell, Sarah noted the lingering shadows in the corners of many eyes and ache that would take time to heal. For Jake Harrington, incarcerated and awaiting sentencing, the future was uncertain. His story splintered before the public eye, a figure of sympathy for some and disdain for others. As he faced a long prison term, Sarah was left considering the complexities of humanity. What had driven him to darkness? How had a fellow resident of Maplewood plummeted into the depths of violence? There were no clear answers, only questions that resonated, reverberating through her mind like a haunting echo. Meanwhile, the school prepared to honor Clara's memory in a way that would inspire generations to come. They established a scholarship in her name, ensuring that her legacy would flourish even in absence. It was here, amid the chatter and excitement of students gathering to remember their teacher, that Sarah found a sense of catharsis. Clara would not be forgotten. Her impact would ripple through lives long after her own had been cruelly extinguished. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah realized healing was a gradual process, a collective effort among a community bound by shared memories. The faces in town, etched with a blend of sorrow and resilience, began to slowly emerge from the shadows, learning to navigate through the ache of Clara's absence while simultaneously celebrating the lessons her life imparted. As winter crept closer and snow dusted the ground, Sarah felt a sense of hope stirring beneath the surface. While the journey toward healing would be fraught with challenges, Maplewood would rise again unified in strength, facing the future together, even as they carried the weight of sadness etched in their hearts. For Clara Jennings had sparked a lasting flame, one that would continue to brighten the lives of others, illuminating the path forward for all who had loved her. Reflection. As the last remnants of winter thawed into an early spring, Detective Sarah Mitchell found herself at a crossroads of emotion. The case of Clara Jennings was now etched into her heart, shaped by the grief, the revelations, and the communal resilience she witnessed over the past months. The world moved ever so slowly, yet Sarah understood that healing was not linear. It ebbed and flowed like the seasons, casting sunlight even in the darkest corners. Each visit to Maplewood prompted memories that intensified her reflections. The once bustling streets felt quieter than before, yet the whispers of Clara's influence seemed to permeate the air, solace wrapped beneath layers of melancholy. She returned often to the park where Clara's memorial had been held, sitting on a weathered bench as children laughed around her, and their innocent joy reminded her of the light Clara had brought into so many lives. In moments of solitude, Sarah contemplated her own journey, the lives she'd touched, and those that remained elusive. The case had shifted her perspective and redefined the intricacies of human emotion. She knew the fragility of existence, how one life could be woven into the fabric of many, creating ripples that could stretch far beyond a single tragedy. As the sun set, casting soft hues upon the horizon, Sarah vowed to honor Clara's memory by being a steadfast advocate for those who felt lost and unheard. Her role as a detective transcended mere investigation. It became a commitment to seek understanding, providing closure not only for victims, but also for communities left reeling in the wake of loss. In her heart, she held on to the delicate flame of hope. The world may be fraught with pain, but within it, she had witnessed the strength of humanity. The bond that connected them, a connection deeper than blood, woven through empathy and compassion. Clara Jennings would never be forgotten. Her legacy would pulse vibrantly within the heart she had touched, reminding all of the beauty encapsulated in life, however brief it may be.